And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello everyone, welcome to the new episode of Coffee or Tea podcast. I have the lovely Julia with me. The first time ever in-person interview. Julia is a teacher in somewhere in Brisbane, but I will let her introduce herself a little bit more. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Julia.
I'm a primary school teacher who's been teaching for 10 years now, and I mostly work with the early years students, so in prep to year 2 generally.
Great. Now, the reason why I wanted to interview Julia is because she's a teacher and I'm a teacher, and I have all these questions. I want to talk to another teacher, and I think only teachers understand each other. Wouldn't you agree? Like specifically with
That's true.
Certain things.
Yes.
Like I remember the other day, I was talking to a friend who was an accountant, and then she was saying, I was explaining to her the annoyance of having to do duties for someone else, and then she was like, it's just 20 minutes, how hard is it? I'm like, no, but sometimes I need to prep things, or I need to run to the toilet or whatever.
You need to talk to an adult.
Yeah. Or
for 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And she looked at me, she went, I don't see it. I think it's no. So I was like, okay, I need to talk to a teacher.
Yeah.
And then I think yeah. But the one thing I wanted to start off with is essentially the sort of, because you and I are, we're basically the new generations of teachers, and I was really interested to see if you have the same thought where nowadays in schools I find myself in this weird limbo area where people, education is telling us to teach a very traditional way, but I have my own new way. It might not be everyone's way, but it's my way, and I think it works maybe a bit better than the traditional way. And that's the first thing I wanted to ask you, is to see if you are having that same thought, or if that same feeling is happening right now in the years of your teaching life.
Yeah, well, I think when I look back at me going to primary school, a lot of what happened was the teachers standing in front of a room, and that's what it would have been for our parents as well. Mm-hmm. Someone's just explaining constantly what you have to do, and then you go ahead and do it. Whereas now, I think that part is still important with explicit teaching. Yeah. But I think you need a range of ways of delivering education now. Yeah. So I've seen a lot of other teachers do flexible seating. Mm-hmm. I've tried it, and I haven't found it works for me. Yeah. But I think there's other ways of working. So even within my classroom, I've got different areas. We move to the carpet a lot and sit down there, because also kids' attention spans don't seem to be lasting very long either. So I want to get them moving from the carpet back to their desks, or over to group work, or working in a booth with a small group or by themselves. So I think it all depends on the kids you teach, the age you teach, but I think you have to offer the whole range of delivery modes, because otherwise it's not going to suit everyone. Yeah,
I agree. Now, before we keep going, I just want to preface this. Julie is a primary school teacher, and in Australia that's prep all the way to year 6. Year 6. And then going back, can you just explain briefly for the people that don't understand flexible seating?
Yep.
So what is flexible seating?
So flexible seating is allowing kids to work in different ways at their desks. They might not necessarily work at a traditional table,
row by row,
column, or
whatever.
in a group. They might not have a tidy tray and a desk to work at. They might instead use a lap desk on the floor, sit at a beanbag, or sit at just an entirely separate table. Mm-hmm. They might work just outside the classroom. It's just a different way of seating. Yeah. Where I've seen that go the wrong way as well, where I've seen students who love that order and organisation of sitting at a desk with their own equipment and not bothered by anybody else, having to then do flexible seating and feel really out of place and confused with what they're doing. Yeah. So I guess it does have to be up to the kids. I have a boy in my class this year who likes to pull his desk out from the group and sit off to the side.
And you allow that?
Yeah, and that's his choice, and it seems to work really well for him, because he's managed on his own to realise that he gets distracted easily. Yeah. And he wants to move away, and he's happy to do it. And then in the afternoon he pushes his desk back in and gets ready to go home.
So this boy is self-aware enough to know that he's getting distracted and he needs to pull out of the group that he's in.
Yeah, which is pretty impressive.
That's pretty impressive.
At grade 2. And he gets so much work done when he's just working by himself. And he'll come back in for group work.
Yeah.
And things where they require to like use materials with a partner and things like that. He straight away just shuffles his desk back in and gets ready to keep going.
And then, so have you ever had to do, the old traditional way where you go, you're being way too naughty, go off to the side? Or is it all just choice? Are you giving the students their own choice? Or do you set the rules how do you do
I think there have to be boundaries. There's
Yeah.
definitely choice in the way that when I set up groups, I follow a particular style. I went to a PD by a company called Kagan where they talk about ways of grouping kids, and I follow their system. Most of the time, but then I've got students who'll come to school and say, I don't want to sit here anymore, I don't like my group, and I ask them, who do you want to sit with? Like, is there a friend you want to sit with? And then I just shuffle according to my groups.
I wish I could be like that when I was a kid. I want to sit with my friend.
But I don't like the idea of excluding a child and having them separated. Like, I saw that through my own primary school years, and I know through friends who still feel a little bit traumatized from primary school in the fact that because of their ADD they were put at a desk by themselves. Yeah. It also, though, like when I'm down at the carpet reading a book or something and someone just keeps talking and you give them the reward, positive rewards to the kids who are doing the right thing, and then you give them warnings, but it doesn't work. I will often say, okay, you're going to go and sit at your desks, but you can still hear the story, but you're going to spend 2 minutes over there and then join us again.
Okay.
Like, I think you have to have those boundaries as well.
But, like, I guess it depends on the teacher, doesn't it? Like, because some teachers, they might not set... Because I think, for example, when I first go into a new school, if I'm going, a new job, and then if I have a class allocated to me, I think... From the past experience, I think I'm quite authoritarian, because I always have, or especially when I'm teaching in the high school anyway, I know that a lot of times the saying goes, don't smile until Christmas. And I think...
That's in the UK?
That was in the UK. I remember this proper British lady who grew up quite in the tough times, and she would always say to me, don't laugh until Christmas. And then I thought to myself, okay, well, and then and that seems to be working with, well, I mean, I'm not nasty to the kids,
but firm.
And I think after the second year, going into the second year, students, I might, take a jab at a kid, sass him a little bit here and there, because, in a high school, I feel like there needs to be an element of give, because especially when you're teaching, kids who are about to be 18, about to be 17, they start to form their own opinion. And I think as teachers in high school, I need to have a little bit of that leeway to go, all right, you've had enough life experience for you to form opinions on certain topics,
and to make good choices.
Good choices. Hopefully, you have made good choices. But I want to sort of shift into the first question I asked you. That I want to ask you is, what do you think the new generation of students are going to be, or are facing right now, or will be facing in the future? Because I'll give one example, which is the horrible, or not horrible. Okay, I shouldn't use horrible. Like maybe the constant struggle with having to memorize certain knowledge, when in their head, I know for a fact that in their head they're just thinking, I can just Google this, and maybe their parents tell them that you can just Google that, or their future employers will just say, yeah, Google that, whatever. So that's one thing for me.
Yeah.
But what is there anything that you think will become a roadblock or a problem for the future students?
Well, I think with technology being such a huge part of teaching now, we use interactive whiteboards and iPads in the classroom. I mean, some schools, not all schools have access to those, and having computers in the room, I think the kids, before you can just say, just go and Google it, have to know how to critically look at text and know how to research. So I've got grade 2s. They don't entirely know how to research, although they're getting better. Like in the last week of school we were doing drawings,
Yeah.
and the kids wanted to select their own picture to copy off the internet.
Oh, okay.
So they were looking up Minecraft and
Of course.
those kind of things.
Wait, Minecraft is still a thing?
Oh yeah, big deal.
Oh,
apparently.
really?
I still don't know what it is, but
No.
but they were doing pretty good research, and
Yeah.
like I have the teacher iPad that shows me what they're searching on
Yeah.
their screens, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can see that they're staying within the safe boundaries of what they're searching.
Yeah.
But they're surprisingly quite good at that kind of thing because they're doing it at home all the time.
Yeah.
They know how to find things on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I've always considered myself pretty tech savvy, like
Yeah.
I've always been up to date,
Yeah.
but I am starting to see that slip in things like programs like Scratch and all these coding
Oh, yeah.
computer things.
Yeah.
It's probably something I need to work on
Yeah.
to know more about.
But do you teach, like, so for people who don't know, Scratch is essentially like a program where kids can do very simple coding and make even games.
I think they make videos as well.
Yeah, videos as well.
Yeah.
So it's a very, should we say, primary school friendly?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
In early years, definitely
Yeah.
as well. I think
But-
there's different versions.
Yeah. So is that something that you have to teach as a form teacher?
At my particular school, we have a digital technology teacher.
Yeah.
So I think he does that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
But you would have to know-
But we go to the computer lab and have a go at different programs as well.
Okay.
And even within the classroom, especially for maths, we use like bee-bots, which are robotic bees that you have to program yourself.
Yeah.
And they're so child-friendly. They're brilliant. They're like the
That's good.
best way to start with robotics.
Yeah.
And there's iPad apps that go with that. So we use a lot of technology in the classroom, but I think in terms of kids researching and finding out information on their own,
Yeah.
it's important that the teachers scaffolding, I don't know how to explain, around the knowledge for that. So
Yeah.
so next term we're learning about renewable energies
Yeah.
and the water cycle.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's just as easy as saying, let's all jump on the iPads and computers, let's start Googling it,
I agree.
which they can.
They can, yeah.
And there are so many videos they can watch, and
Yeah.
and I would just select a couple of videos to show them that will explain things, but then I think it needs a picture book that explains it in a different way.
Yeah.
It needs an information text that the kids can look at. So it's about building up your classroom with all the resources that they can access that aren't just digital.
Yeah.
So I'll go to the library and grab a bunch of books on the water cycle. I'll
Yeah.
grab a bunch of books on renewable energies and
Yeah.
non-renewable energies that then they can look at critically and say, well, I can tell this is a fictional text, this is a non-fiction text.
Yeah.
And I think the extra activities the teacher's doing, like we'll do craft for the clouds, like we'll make
Yeah.
cute cotton wool craft.
Yeah, so something a bit more physical
Yeah.
as well, hands-on.
And the stuff that
Yeah.
for most kids is going to stay in their memory possibly a bit longer when they're constantly bombarded with digital
Yeah.
all the time.
I think this is when my subject, music, still sort of sticks to that practical component where I think if kids wants to learn an instrument, they can't just Google that, or they can't just be the best.
No,
at it
I've
just
tried
because
to
they-
do that with the ukulele and harmonica. Doesn't work.
But do you know what I mean? Like, I think I agree. Like, technology is making students learn quicker or making the process quicker. But I think some teachers I've seen in the past, they almost go too heavy on the technology side, where they're sort of losing that practical. Because I think as humans and as animals, we need that tactile, like hands-on crafts. Or
Yep.
you know, I remember like I'll give you an example. Like when I was in year 3, year 4, year 5, like because English wasn't my first language, and the way I would remember how to like learn English, like I'll be doing like 10 words for the week, and it would just be like going to the dictionary and finding 10 words. So the one word I remember the most was Monday and 1,000, because what my parents did was the old-fashioned way, where they would go, all right, so what's your 10 words? And I would say, oh, this is the 10 words. And then they would go, all right, here's 2 pages of A4 sheet of paper, fill it out. And then so I would write, you know, the word Monday or the word 1,000, like until the 2 pages had been filled out. And to this day, I remember vividly, like the lead that covers your arm,
yes.
your writing arm. But I mean, like, those are the little not fun things, but those are little
The things you remember.
things you remember. And then I don't think kids these days would even know that if you write too much, you would have lead covering your arm, or this side.
Oh, I do make my kids write a lot,
Well, that's
so
good.
they do get it.
Yeah, so I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to talk about like what the kids, because obviously if they're leaning too much on the technology, it means that when they become an adult or when they become an employee or employer, they might not be able to do certain things.
And there's a lot of skills that kids are like, I've taught prep a few times now, and there's a lot of skills kids are lacking when they come into prep.
What would that be?
Like fine motor skills,
Yeah.
for example. So you'll have kids who might not have gone to kindy, or have done very little kindy or very little tactile things at home, that when they get to school, they're not even sure how to hold a pair of scissors or how to hold a pencil. And it's not unusual. And it depends on the school and the clientele.
Yeah.
But there'll always be a few kids who are struggling with the fine motor skills.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that is because they've been swiping an iPad.
And they just do one finger
instead
thing.
of cutting up magazines at home and doing those sorts of things. And I mean, it's a parent's choice on how they want to do that. And they will learn those skills at school.
Yeah.
It just means they're going to be that little step behind.
Yeah.
And even now, I still get grade 2s to work with Play-Doh and make sight words, and because they've got to build those muscles in their hands.
Yeah, I agree.
And-
I think.
And the same with handwriting. I know there's teachers out there who don't believe that handwriting should be taught anymore. I'm different. I feel pretty strongly about handwriting. I think it is a skill that you need, but I also see it as a skill that your hands and muscles and coordination, I think you need all of those things. And it's not necessarily about the neat handwriting at the end of it. It's being able to control a pencil.
Yes.
And
that
being able
fine
to
control,
the fine motor skills. So yeah, because I know some people compare it to, well, we don't use a chisel on stone to write anymore.
Yeah,
we don't use a quill on paper. So why would we use a pencil when we've got a laptop? But yeah. And I mean, I don't take away typing. I think that is a incredibly important skill that kids need, because I see kids now that are just typing with like one finger for each letter, and they'll build that, and that's fine in primary school. I don't think I even would have really used a keyboard until, I don't know, grade 3.
I think yes.
I think that's when my school got a computer lab.
Yeah.
And I just happened to have a tech-savvy teacher.
Yeah. I remember my first encounter with computers at school was year 7, where like had the old school like Apple computer, like the box, and then like I remember like the Apple computer was like all blue, and you can see the inside, all the motherboards and inside, and then like there was crappy games like spell apple, and then like this character would shoot like arrows.
Oh yeah, I think I played that one as well.
Yeah, something like that.
And there are still games like that. So with the at-home learning we had to do through the COVID-19 restrictions, we were sending home typing programs because it's funny how kids get so well adjusted to a tablet or an iPad, and then when you get them to use a mouse or a keyboard, it's completely different. Because to control a mouse, you're using different parts of the brain. Like you're controlling something with your hand that then has to work up on a screen, like, and that's hard for kids to work.
And similar skills in specific instrument like piano, where kids have to play horizontally, but they read vertically, where they read two hands. So like if you're playing violin, or if you're playing clarinet or saxophone or whatever, or harmonica, whatever it might be, it's less of that because you're just reading one line. Whereas I always tell the younger kids, like, if you're playing the piano, you get smarter because you are literally playing two instruments at the same time, left hand and right hand. But what I think really helps later on for them to learn the piano at the beginning is that because they're reading two things simultaneously happening at the same time, and sometimes not even doing it in unison. There's sometimes, right hand has 5 notes, and then the left hand has like 2 notes or something, and you've got to like match it together. It's almost become a rhythm game, and then their brain their tiny little brain is almost like exploding with information at the beginning.
Yeah.
But later on, like, they get better at it because whether it's they know exactly, they can predict what would happen, or I think maybe their body is used to receiving all these visual.
It's like a muscle memory
Yeah.
thing.
And then I think it really helps them later on down the track. I don't want to be an advocate and say, oh my god, like, music will help you be smarter. I don't want to say that, but like, it's like, but it does help with those, like you said, those fine motor controls. You know, like if they want to trace something, well, if you've been writing for your, you know, the first 10 years of your life, you know exactly how to trace small figures or
true.
connect the dots, you know, all that games. I think those games and those activities does have a purpose later on down the track.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But I think, you know, depending, like you said, depending on the clientele, some parents, they, you know, if they don't want their kids to be writing all day at home, you can't just drive to their house and go, you have to write, you know.
Yeah, that's true. And that was hard with the learning from home, like making phone calls home and talking to families.
Yeah.
They were trying really hard, and it was a hard situation for families to be in.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed that people were giving it a go. And like, we had the expectation, or I had the expectation that you get done what you can do.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be a normal school day. It can be a couple of hours, read a book together, do a little bit of writing together. It didn't have to be what we had scripted, which was a lot, but there was no expectation to get it completed.
So that's actually one thing I'm really interested about, is during the COVID lockdown, when did your school go into lockdown? April, March?
Oh, I can't even remember. It was week 10.
Week 10 of term number...
Of term 1.
Of term 1.
Yeah, kids didn't come to school for week 10.
Yep.
Only the kids of essential workers.
Yep.
And for that week, all the staff were just creating plans and documents. We stayed paper-based at my school.
Yeah.
Which I'm so happy we did, because a lot of schools had faults in the first week of term 2.
Tech problems.
Major tech problems.
Oh
so we had none of that. So we hand delivered all of our learning packs in fortnightly bunches. So everything was given to the families. It was a lot of paper. and a lot did come back incomplete, but the families had it there at their disposal. They could use whatever they wanted. We explained that you could change this activity to something else. We provided a lot of online tools and apps and programs that we recommended, but it was primarily up to the families how they wanted to do it. And I think going paper-based was really good. And especially because we had families who don't have internet access or might only have one laptop for the whole family, and they might have 3 kids at the school, and you can't share that around.
Right. Yeah, siblings, I completely forgot about that.
That's a huge part. So I think that was one of the big barriers to kids being able to do the online learning.
So let's go into it. For teachers, what was required of you guys during the lockdown from either the Department of Education or from your principals? Was it, do you have to stick to the assessment that you have planned out before the COVID, or was it like, all right, Wild West, just do whatever you want, the kids need to just be doing something? Like, what was it?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of the department or the school, but from my experience, it was that as a staff, we decided that we would go paper-based, a group decision, and we decided we would continue with the same units we were going to be working through. And with those units, we just adjusted the lessons that they're obviously not getting delivery from the teachers. They're getting paper versions. And we provided links to storybooks and things. And we happened to be doing fairy tales, so they were very easily accessible stories. And for most families, I know our families who have additional language and dialect, it wasn't as easy, because often fairy tales they're not necessarily a global thing.
No,
They can be very European.
And different cultures have different fairy tales or myths.
So that part was difficult. And I mean, it was difficult for families who don't speak much English to access the English curriculum. But we've got professionals at our school who help with that as well. So and then I just provided extra assistance on the phone or via email for those families. So because I've got children who are just learning English this year as well. So it was a really hard time for them but we just differentiated what we offered. So they
Yeah.
got a different learning pack for English compared to somebody else.
That's good.
Yeah.
You guys had different varieties for different
Yeah,
students.
so I think our school did it really well.
Good. Shout out. Oh, actually, no, I can't
No,
say the school
no,
name.
no
I can't
shout
say the school
outs.
names.
No shout outs. But yeah, I'm really happy with how we did it. And I think the kids did surprise, like when we came back and continued the units,
Yeah.
because we had to revise them because we still had to assess and report
Yes.
by the end of term,
Yes.
which is scary because you haven't taught them this information. You just hope that they've picked it up at home
Yeah.
through what we've provided.
Yeah.
And then from the revision we redid at school, you hope that they got good results from.
Yeah.
And there were areas that you could see were lacking. So I don't think my students' results in mathematics were as good as they would have been if we had have been at school doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also think this whole term probably shouldn't be counted in terms of
Yeah.
education as such.
It's more like family time. Just stay.
Well,
Yeah.
it was hard to write a report that reflected what had happened
Yeah.
throughout the term.
So, sorry, I'm just writing a couple points before I forget about them. So, that what you just said is triggers something really that fascinates me is English second language, because I was one of them.
Yep.
That's throw COVID away. How many non-English speaking students do you have in your class? Is average? Is it average 2 per class, or is it 10?
Well, it all changes, and when kids get enrolled, often the principal will talk to the teachers and say, where do you think this child's best suited, or the principal will make the decision on where they're best suited, because I've got multiple students in my class who are Korean,
Yeah.
or one
So you
parent.
currently have 19 students.
Yeah. And-
That's the full class.
Yeah, full
Yep.
class. So
Yep.
one of their parents might be Korean,
Yeah.
and so at home they're speaking a mixture of English and Korean.
Yeah.
Then I have students whose parents only speak Korean.
Yes.
And very little English.
Yes.
I also have multiple students who speak different Indian
Yeah.
languages
Yeah.
within my class. I think there's 4
Yeah.
students in my class who speak different Indian languages,
Yeah.
not necessarily the same as each other.
Yeah.
I have students who speak Arabic at home,
Yeah.
Filipino at home. So there's a wide range in my class. I would say, I don't know if it would even be 50% that do have English as an additional language.
Yeah.
And again, it depends on the school.
Yeah.
You can go to a school that has very little clientele who have
Yeah.
English as an additional language, and
Yeah.
then another one where there's quite a lot. So our school does have a lot of kids and a lot of languages across the school.
So, is English out of the entire school? Is English the majority?
It probably still would be,
Still-
yeah.
it still is,
and a lot
okay.
of the parents have learned English themselves,
Yeah.
so
And in your classroom, because obviously you can't speak for other teachers, but in your classroom, how do you tackle that problem? Because I remember me growing up, because English isn't even my second language, English is technically my third language, and I struggled a lot all the way up until my university life,
Yeah.
where there are things where I really want to say, I see it in my brain, and then I'm just thinking like, it's that moment where
Yeah.
it's just on the tip of your tongue, and you're like, I can't, and then you give up in the end.
yeah,
because,
and especially if you're working across multiple languages, you've got
Yeah.
to unlock all of that in your
Yeah.
mind before you start speaking.
Yeah, and because one thing I still do to this day is when I do numbers, anything to do with numbers, any addition, subtract, any math, I do it in Mandarin. I'm thinking, so for example, like, if, teacher, like if you're my teacher and you asked us, what is 1 + 1 equal? And in my head I would go, all right, 1 + 1 in English translate to Mandarin, and Mandarin 1 + 1 equals 2. 2 in English is this, and then going back, and then so 2 and 1 + 1 equals 2.
Yep.
Like that's the process I can that's probably the quickest process I can explain. But but that, if you get 1 + 1 is simple, but when you get to like high school mathematics or high school essay writing, or
And especially once you mix problem solving and
Yes.
reasoning into maths.
I'm glad you said that, because problem solving was my worst section in the maths. If my teacher just throws me an equation, I can do it. But it's when, little Johnny has 2 apples and he ate 2, and then Susie came over and did this, and then, it's just all these words, and I'm like,
it complicates it a lot.
Yeah,
because you're mixing English with maths and
literacy and mathematics. You're like, literacy and numeracy together. I'm like, I can't do this. So how do you?
Yeah, and it's tough because that's a curriculum priority, is to have literacy throughout every subject.
Yeah.
So it is something you need. But then I've got a little girl in my class who can just do any sort of sum so quickly in her mind.
Yeah.
But to give me a reason or explain how she's done something.
Yeah.
She has a lot of difficulties. So in the classroom, to try and help her there, it's just about practicing. We do them as a whole class. We get kids up to write out their reasoning, talk about it, and I think that's the best way. And showing with materials. So show me how you work that out instead of just doing it in your head.
And just write the answers on the paper.
Yeah, show me now. Like, get your counters or your... We've been using those Coles stickies for counters and things. Like, show me with your stickies how you're going to do the answer.
That's good. A bit more, because I remember, I used to just get marks deducted because I didn't show my working. But the answer is right. But, the question might be out of 5 and I will only get 1. And then literally the teacher's like, right answer, where's your working? And a question mark. I'm like,
and it happens a lot.
And I'm like, God damn it, I told you the answer. It's right.
It's correct.
Okay. And because of this whole COVID lockdown and affected essentially the entire globe, has parent perceptions about teachers changed, in your opinion?
I've only had positive responses from parents, so it's hard to say. But then online, on Facebook and things, I'll see really negative things. I just try not to go into that because I see who the author is. It could be a particular newspaper, and I go, okay, well, their opinions are generally pretty negative about teachers, and try to start negative conversations. So I try to steer away from that. But from my families, they've been really positive about the whole thing, and they've been really happy with what we've done.
Do they think, because one of the biggest topic that during the peak of COVID, what I got was a lot of parents realize how hard it is to be looking after their own kids for the entire day, and then they're like, oh my god, I need to have a holiday or whatever.
Yes, and I saw the hilarious memes I've realised it's not the teacher, it is my child.
So, and the reason why I asked is because I want to segue this to the next topic, which this is something that it's just sort of come up, so you don't know this.
Oh, that's
yet.
fine.
I think this opinion is it might be a bit more controversial, but ever since I became a teacher, and after almost 4 years of teaching, made me realize not every parent should be parents. And I don't know how you feel about that, but I will just elaborate a little bit. Is that because I taught in high schools, family situations gets a bit more aggressive, escalates to a bigger scale. Some of them are because of abuse, some of them because of rape, some because of whatever might be happening at home, like drugs or whatever. And I think in high school that particular topic I have, and that particular opinion, sort of, it's just more intense, and I became the mind of, if there's a license for everything, if I need a license for everything, I feel like parents who wants to have kids should at least get, not a test, but at least go through if you want to get your driver's license, you need to go through a seminar or something. I feel like these parents new parents maybe, needs to go through a seminar or some sort of presentation to go, okay, if this happens at school, this is how you deal with, or some sort of thing to prep them up.
Well, there are parenting programs available. There's a triple P program that does help new parents. And I think it can be really difficult because you've got so many students who are going through a lot at home
Yeah.
with some major trauma
Yes.
in their life, or generational trauma that is because of Australian history.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's the parents, I don't know how to say it, not that the parents shouldn't be parents, but just that the schools can help those parents to help their child.
Yeah.
So a lot of what is happening in education now is trauma-informed teaching. So being able to, because we're not counsellors, we're not psychiatrists or psychologists, but we do have to do a lot of that work in our classrooms.
Yeah.
And you have to do a lot of that social work.
Yeah.
So something that trauma-informed teaching tries to push forward is that you're having a positive moment as soon as that child comes to school. So, like, it's been a bit hard with COVID, but something that I was doing each morning is a morning welcome with the teacher, and the kids can choose. So I've got pictures on the wall, and they choose whether they'd like a high five, whether they'd like a hug, whether they'd like a fist bump, or whether they'd just like to wave or say hi.
Yeah.
But to have their name said in a positive way and have a positive welcome into the classroom is just the first step of them seeing success or happiness that they may not have seen that morning before school. So they get to school and you say, hey, and then they say hey back, and they come in feeling like someone's there for them.
And there's a safe, almost like a safe haven for them.
Yeah, and then you're creating that safe environment for them. So it does mean that as soon as that bell goes, I've got to stop sending emails or whatever I'm doing, setting up the classroom, and I go and stand at my door and wait for them. We've been doing air hugs recently because we can't do real hugs.
Yeah. Or the elbow thing or whatever.
Yeah, and the kids get really used to it. So and then on the days that you might be talking to a parent and the kids are just waiting at the door, they're like, I haven't said hello to you yet, and they'll just wave, and but they make it's something that becomes routine. I think it's important. And the same with just breaks throughout the day, because there's so many kids who their glass is already full from something that's happened at home.
Of course.
And it's tipping over.
Yeah. And that one, whatever it is, it's just tiny little thing.
Something could tip them over, so you've got to have those breaks within your learning, because sitting there and writing for 20 minutes might be too much for one particular child. If they've made a mistake in their writing and you've tried to give them feedback in a positive way, but they might not take it in a positive way. So we do things like brain breaks and do some yoga and dance moves and things like that as well, or just have a stretch.
That's very nice.
Tiny things that break it up. And that's also why I moved from desk to carpet, different areas, just to get some movement in the body and break away from doing the same thing all the time.
So do you think your method, because I think these are all great ideas of what you're saying right now, but what I am worried is when they transition into, in America it will be junior high, or for us it's just going straight from primary school to secondary school. I feel like those positive behavior or those healthy things such as take a break, stretch your legs, walk around, or move from your desk to a carpet or to a beanbags or whatever, I think that goes away because, I think, it might be just high schools have more of a pressure from outside source.
That's what I was going to say. The teachers might have more pressure for expectations.
Results, academic results, like academic, because, and I think, because I would agree 100% with what you just said, if somehow we can keep that same format, or that at least an element of it all across the entire
all the way through education.
18 years of their life, you know? But the reality is that sometimes it just doesn't happen, or kids change when they get a bit older, when hormone kicks
that's
in,
true.
and all that stuff kicks in, and then I remember very vividly that one kid who was the best boy I've ever seen, one of those kids that would just help a teacher out every now and then, just grab a chair or whatever, and then just went from the best kid to the most F you, I don't give a fuck student over the summer break. And I went, what happened? Mom and dad didn't change. Their family still lived in the same place.
Yeah.
Brothers and sisters still the same, got a year older, but it's just that summer break. And I went, and I literally had to I remember during one of the sports games, and then the parents was watching as well, and I just talked to the parents about the behavior of this kid, how drastic the change was.
Yeah.
And then the parent just said, yeah, they literally raised their hand and went, yeah, I don't know, like it happened to
Something
us.
shifted.
Something shifted.
Yeah.
Whether it's a mentality or something that, he started wanting to be cool or going through the phase or whatever it might be. And then, so I don't know, like, do you know if do you think there's a way that we could tackle that, or do you think there needs to be a change within the entire high school system?
Oh man, I don't know enough about high school teaching anymore.
Yeah.
But when I think of kids' behaviour shifting dramatically in high
Yeah.
school, like this just from my own experience, high school friendship relationships and is so complicated.
The cliques and
So complicated, and the things that go on in a teenager's mind,
yeah,
there's so much influencing them, and I think even just the Instagram influencing
Yeah.
and things take such a toll on teenagers now. But
Yeah.
I'm so far removed from even the middle years
Yeah.
of primary school,
Yeah.
except for playground duty and things that
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I see throughout schools, in primary schools, that they are using these practices. And I know from high school teachers that I know that are teaching grade 7 are just saying these kids are coming in not knowing how to behave at high school. Not in a negative way, but
Yeah.
just because they're so catered to, and they're doing all of these tiered, differentiated tasks in
Yeah.
primary school, and then
Yeah.
maybe when they reach high school, they're not getting that same assistance.
Yeah.
And I guess it's that same feeling I know when I went to uni, and all of a sudden you're not getting help with your essays.
It's just bam,
You're not
on your
handing
own.
it in to the teacher for it to be edited by them, or
Yeah.
get them to show you how to do your paragraphs. And you get to uni and it's like, you've just got to do it.
Yeah, if you don't hand it in, there's no, oh yeah, sir, can I, or miss, can I get
and
it?
to get an extension's not
Yeah.
easy. So
It's like a proper process,
Yeah.
in universities.
So they are sort of 3 full separate educational sectors, aren't they?
Yeah.
Primary, high,
And
and then
tertiary.
tertiary.
And I think maybe with more teachers like you, like now that we have like now that mental health is a bigger conversation and a bigger
Yeah.
aspect in schools, and we are more, and kids themselves are more socially aware, and about racial issues or about sex issues
Yeah.
or whatever. I think
And they know words, they use words like depression and anxiety.
I had no idea what that word meant when I was a kid. I was like, what the hell is that?
But they are more aware, and they're probably more aware of their parents' emotions than we probably were,
Yeah.
and what was going on at home.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
a lot to focus on, but relationships, I think,
Yeah.
are the important part you need before you even get to academics
Yeah.
and curriculum. You have to have those relationships
Yeah.
first, and you have to be able to work out what's happening with that child.
Yeah, that's very true. It's just such a big conversation that I feel like not a lot of people is talking about.
No, I feel like it's also so much bigger than what a teacher can handle.
Exactly.
One teacher in a classroom with a teacher aide working with, and I mean, I only have 19 kids this
Yeah.
year, and I say only 19 because so many teachers are having up to 35 kids in a class.
I was one of them.
Yeah, and that's a lot of different children with different emotional needs, with different academic needs, with different learning needs.
Yeah.
Kids
Two
who
teachers is not enough. A teacher
Yeah.
and a teacher aide is not enough to facilitate 35 kids in one
Yeah.
classroom. And I'm sitting there like, how do you do this?
Like, it gets compared to, say, 25 patients walking into a doctor's office,
Yeah.
all with different conditions at one time.
Yeah. How is a nurse and a doctor going to be able to handle them other than
Not taking back not saying that what they're doing is not more important.
but it's very, it's that sudden like, oh my god, like I went from like, oh, I'm having a nice couple, oh, morning, how are you, and then suddenly like you got to go in where like 35 kids, maybe like 7 of them want to be there, and the rest is thinking about boys problem, girls problem, or games, or
Yeah.
social media. And I think one thing I really appreciate most schools, I think most school in UK at least, because I was working in UK for 2 years, that I still see is that no phones during school time.
Yeah.
I guess maybe it's less of a problem in primary
Definitely
school for
not
you,
a problem in a grade 2 classroom.
but it was I realized how much of a difference it is.
Yeah.
I mean, kids can use phones before school, but once that bell goes, in your bag,
Yeah.
and we get it, the school keeps that phone in the reception or in the dean's office until the end of that term.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a really good way of doing it, because you don't get it back the next day or that afternoon.
Yeah.
You get it back in the end of that term, which is 10 weeks,
Oh my gosh.
20 weeks, and then if parents have a problem, they go in. They have to go in and speak to the behavior dean, and then they go through the process. Well, I don't know what the process is, but I think it was such a great thing, because I think, and my opinion about social media with kids, with students, is that like it's just the worst thing for them.
Yeah.
Making friends is horrible. Making friends like over, I mean, I'm sure people have made great friends over social media, but for me, like, because text, you can't read emotion, you can't read intent, you can't read tone. I could say to you, hey Julia, what are you doing today, or whatever, and you said not much, but it's just the word not much.
Yeah.
Some people might take it, oh my god, why is she so like snarky? Why why is there no emoji? Why is there no like emotion to this?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, because it's a fucking text. But whereas even if I just call you over the phone, I could hear your intent.
Yeah.
You could be very bubbly that, yeah, not much. But that's completely.
You
That's a
don't see that in
you
a
don't
text
see that.
message.
And I think that's my opinion about why kids shouldn't be using phones at school.
Yeah.
Because it just gets them riled up or makes them sad or whatever. It just affects them.
Whereas I'm lucky with being in year 2, the things they bring into the classroom are like Beyblades and Lego.
Oh, that's
and
good.
things like that, which I make them go put in their bags or in their desk, so it's not distracting them. But that's probably my biggest bringing into the classroom sort of distraction. And I mean, they always come back from playtimes with something that's happened out there. And again, like with the trauma-informed learning, we'll put on like a mindfulness relaxation video. They'll go for like 2 minutes just to do some deep breaths, because there's kids who just need that when they come back from playtime all fired up or just ramped up from being on the monkey bars and things like that.
And then suddenly, I think, and that's exactly what you said, like they need that transitional time, don't they?
Something to calm down.
Yeah. And for me, it was always, if I knew I used to have this really difficult class, and these were essentially like the equivalent of year 11 in Australia, and these are the kids that are picking music as a subject because they want to, but I know that they still get rolled up because I have them in the period straight after lunch.
Yeah.
I know they're still going to be rolled up. The girls will be, the boys will be, it doesn't matter. So what I usually do is they come in and I just have, hey guys, let's just have a nap for 5 minutes, and I just shut all the windows, close all the lights, turn all the lights off, and then like have this sort of like lo-fi music playing in the back. I'm like, just do whatever you want, but you have to be quiet and you can't leave your seat.
Yeah.
And then it seems to work for them.
Yep.
And then you can just, I remember audibly hearing a few kids just go, I'm like, yeah.
Sometimes they just need it, and I think sometimes a teacher needs it as well.
100%. But let's talk about. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about more of a fun stuff. What's the funniest thing you've seen some of your kids bring in from school or from playgrounds? Because I know you have year 2s. Must be a lot of them.
Over the years there's been hilarious things, but I don't know if I can think of any on the spot. Would have been some funny things. There's been some hilarious things that kids have said. I had one girl who used to be really great with compliments.
Okay.
So she'd say things like, oh, I love your hair today.
Oh,
your earrings are really nice. But then she'd give like a bit of a backhanded one. She's like, I love the gap between your front teeth. And you're like, oh, thanks. Or like, oh, your pimple doesn't look that big today. Like, oh, thank you. Thanks so much. So there's kids who say funny things like that. I taught some twins as well who sort of had their own kind of language going on when they were in prep, twin boys.
Okay.
And we were doing the QU digraph, like quip.
Oh, okay.
And we were thinking of different words, so kids are saying like quack and things like that. And then one of the twins called out quackadile. and it was hilarious. I mean, it probably doesn't sound as funny now, but at the time, the moments that you wish there was another adult in the room.
To just share it?
Yeah, there are so many moments like that where you just wish there was someone else there that you could make eye contact with and try not to burst out laughing. And even when you're getting cranky at someone about something they've done. Like, I had a child write something quite inappropriate in a writing task. And it was very inappropriate, but it was also hilarious the way they'd written it. But I couldn't show that at all. You've got to hide that emotion completely and just be an actor.
Yeah, I know, right?
Because he had to be in trouble for what he'd done or know what he'd done and understand, but at the same time to not burst out laughing was really difficult.
I actually, those moments make me remember those specific kids a bit more. I had a boy, I had to cover a computer class, and then similar thing, a boy, this is year 4, year 5 boys, and then just like, you know, computer teachers where they have their monitor, they can see everyone's screen on his screen. And then I remember I saw this kid on, because everyone should be on this website, because I was just doing whatever the teacher who was sick that day to do whatever he wants me to do. So everyone was supposed to be on this particular site to do these sort of like games or activities or whatever. And I just see this kid suddenly like went from this website to like a normal Google page. And then I was watching him and he just typed, "Where is boob?" And I was like, "Excuse me?" And then obviously I stopped him and everything. I had a chat to him. And then, but I went back and I was like, "Why just boob? Why one?" Like, does he even know what the word means? And I just thought it was hilarious. But it was one of those moments where, like, you have to like not laugh, or you can't show your like your guards down. You gotta like, you know, like, "Oh, you can't do this. You know, this is very important." Like, you know, blah 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 blah. And then, but like inside, dying. Yeah. Just melting from dying.
There's so many moments like that.
I don't know. I think that's one of the nice parts of teaching primary schools.
Yeah, that's true.
You can have like those little naive, nice moments.
Yeah, and you get to be silly. That's what I love about primary school.
Yeah.
And I'm sure high school's the same. But you get to have those moments where you're not always serious. Like, you are serious. You're taking it seriously. What you're teaching is serious, but you can have fun with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And dress up and wear crazy clothes and...
Oh yeah, because you guys would have like story day or like novel
book week.
Book week.
It's my favourite day of the entire year.
What's your best costume? Hands down.
Ooh. My favourite was probably when I dressed up as Marge in Charge. You might not know Marge, but she is a nanny with rainbow hair, but the parents who leave for the night don't know she's got rainbow hair and that she has fun.
Okay.
Because she just looks like a little old lady with a beanie.
But she has like a...
But she pulls the beanie off and she goes wild.
Oh.
They were books written by Isla Fisher.
Oh, really?
And they're really, really good. So I went as Marge in Charge one year. And that was probably one of my favourites.
Bleach your hair?
Oh, no, I had a rainbow wig.
Oh, did you?
I would have liked to have done the real thing. But
oh my god, that would have been funny.
Yeah. And last year I went as the pigeon from The Pigeon Finds a Hot Dog. It's another really popular one if you're a primary school teacher.
Oh, okay.
And my friend went as the hot dog. So we're a hot dog and pigeon combo.
So is the story that you eat the pigeon?
Eventually. Yeah. So she had a hot dog suit on and I was dressed as a pigeon. It was pretty good.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. It's my favourite day.
I don't know. I really like those moments, like in primary schools, because those are the moments I remember as a kid. I remember those days as well. I remember when I was growing up, Harry Potter was a massive thing, so everyone was.
There's still so many. Like, you'll get 5 Hermiones in the class.
Oh jeez.
On the day.
Or like I remember like.
Which I'm not against.
No, I don't think so. But I just remember like everyone was either like Harry with the star, or like who was another character from Harry Potter.
I had a Death Eater a couple of years ago. That was a good one.
Oh. Yeah. That's good.
And Voldemort as well. Yeah.
Oh, I had a Hagrid.
That's good.
This kid who he never liked being short. He is short. Well, he was. He's super tall now. He's like 190 or something. But he was very short for like out of his class. Yeah. But now in high school he's quite tall. But what happened was, his dad was a carpenter. So for book week, his dad made him like a little almost like stiletto for
like platform shoes.
Like platform shoes. So he rocked up like with the big trench Hagrid coat.
That's brilliant.
And then mum gave him the wig or whatever. But inside the coat he was like just walking, like, and he was like, "Hey sir, how are you today?" And I'm like, "All right, calm down."
That's so good.
I think
Yeah.
it's quite nice.
I do too.
Yeah. Okay. I think I can ask you this one last question
Yep.
I have that I still want to touch on is, I think I just wrote to you. I think all I said was traditional versus new teachers. What is different?
Oh yeah.
Like, what's your thought on that?
Well, I look at teachers who are probably considered old school, like they've been teaching 30 plus years.
Yeah.
And they are still some of them, a few that I'm thinking of, are still the most motivated, hardworking teachers I know.
Yeah.
And are still coming to work enthusiastic. They're still spending their Sunday afternoons planning for the rest of the week. They are, like, the obvious change is technology. So I know a lot of my teacher friends who've been teaching a long time talk about, before there are even photocopiers, there's like some machine they used.
Oh, God.
They talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
And so there's those changes in technology where now, like, you don't have to be making as many resources. Like, you don't sit on a weekend and laminate thousands of things you've created, board
Cut
games,
things
because
out, yeah.
there's online websites now that, like, yes, we still subscribe to, and a lot of teachers are using their own money to subscribe to.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's saving you a lot of time. Like, I know that I can jump on websites and download something for the next week instead of having to spend each night cutting and laminating and creating all these different resources. Like, it's all at your fingertips now.
Yeah.
But a lot of those teachers who are still doing it are doing it because they love it.
The process
And
of
they're
it.
still, like, the best teachers I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's almost like they enjoy the grind.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And they still have a healthy work-life balance. I think that's workload is the biggest thing affecting teachers at the moment, I think. And there is
100%, I think.
all of, with the workload comes taking on what's happening to a child and the emotional attachment that you have.
Yeah.
But I think workload is getting better. I know that I've finally found a balance. And I mean, this is my 10th year of teaching, but I've finally found
Only
a balance.
took you now to find a balance. Wow.
Oh, it's probably been the last few years. Like, in my first few years of teaching, I knew that Sunday was a work day for me.
Yeah.
Saturday was my only day off. Sunday,
Like, without a doubt, Sunday's
Yeah.
work day. Yeah.
And I think with teaching the same grade for a few years in a row, that definitely helps, because you've got your resources set, you know what you're teaching, there hasn't been a change in the curriculum yet.
Yeah.
But then,
Knock on wood.
when I've had to move to a different grade all of a sudden, you are back at square one again in a way.
And you just pull out those resources from the cabinet or whatever.
Yeah, but so it's been good for me that I've always been prepped to. I have taught up to year 3 as well, but the subjects are all different. So every time you're on a different grade, you are creating new resources, looking at new curriculum documents and things. But a lot of it is a spiral sort of curriculum, so you're teaching just stronger content as it goes through.
Of that same topic.
Of the same topic, yeah. So things like sustainability,
Wow.
will spiral.
With year 2?
Oh yeah.
Do you say sustainability?
That's one
Wow.
of the Australian curriculum priorities is sustainability. So it's meant to be through all your work. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island histories and cultures and perspectives are all the way through your curriculum.
Yeah.
As well as, what do they call it? Engagement with Asia. So that's one as well. So I think at the time, Kevin Rudd might have been
Oh, that's a while ago.
the Prime Minister when the Australian curriculum went in. So, and a
Yeah.
big part was that engagement with Asia.
Yeah.
So that's still through our curriculum as well.
Yeah. So how do you do that? Curriculum with Asia? Or connection with Asia? Whatever.
So
Is it-
ways I've seen it through the Queensland curriculum that we use or have used as a guide is things like talking about Asian events and celebrations and things like that.
So I want to link this to the topic. The topic of the question is the traditional teachers. How do you think they would approach it, and how would you approach it if it was something like this, like connection? What was the topic?
Engagement with Asia.
Engagement with Asia. Yeah, how would, in your experience and what you've seen, what would the two different style tackle the same topic?
Yeah.
Like, let's say, how would you tackle, or how have you been tackling it?
How have I done it? I guess the main thing I always do is look for texts on different topics. So looking for texts on Asian countries, and depending on what your subject is, if you're looking at fairy tales, you find fairy tales from around the world in different places. So there's always trying to find a link to other cultures. And I think because of the kids I have in my class, you look for those cultures that they connect with. And that's the best way to do it. But in terms of like traditional versus new teachers, I think there's different styles between all teachers, even two graduate teachers that are starting are going to have different styles. But I don't know if I necessarily see a traditional style anymore compared to a new teacher. I think
it's more...
everyone's still doing things differently, but they have the same outcome at the end. Or they're working towards the same outcome.
So it sounds like the more experienced teachers are self-aware to know they need to,
and I think they've always adapted, and I think that's what teachers do. I think you just always have to adapt, because you get told this has to be put on this online program, and you're like, okay, well I have to learn how to use it, and you have to, and or this is the app that your class are going to be using for this subject, so you have to get your head around it. So I think teachers have always been really good at just adapting. And the same with people giving flexible seating and go, like, I know senior experienced teachers who've always just had an area in their room that is for those kids. Like, it's... I think every teacher's got a different style.
The reason why I asked was, and I even brought it up, is because I saw more of a pushback because so when I was at UK, I taught in two very prestigious prep schools. So that's from, kindy all the way up to year 8. And then they have secondary school. And in those schools, I can see and I can even feel there was a pushback for that the senior teachers not wanting to integrate technology into their own teaching. And there was like a real pushback. And to them, it was like, I've been doing this for like X amount of years and it's going to work now, whereas for me, like making, like, I think at least I came from a generation where if I want to make my own worksheets, I would do it, but I wouldn't do it by hand.
No.
I'd do it on Google Doc, or I'd do it on, Photoshop or whatever. Like, I still do it on my own. It's still mine, but it's just on the digital platform. But whereas, like, these teachers that I've met, they were like rulers, protractors, like Sharpies, and when you see the final...
It's funny because I do a bit of a combo of both.
Do you?
Because I'm a real, like, pencil on paper kind of person.
It's so authentic when I see because some of them have actually laminated their first worksheets since like 19 I don't know, like 70 or 60, and I'm like, I as a teacher, I appreciate that grind and that work and that result, but if I was to do that nowadays, I'm like, I have 10,000 other things, like being head of department, being like having to teach basically the entire school in the subject of music, and having to do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, if I can do this a lot quicker, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, and for sure.
And so and that's sort of why I even brought up, because I felt there was a pushback a little bit, and even with the management, with the headmasters or the principals or the dean, because they are, usually they're a bit more senior, so they would also go, oh yeah, you can just do it like the old-fashioned way or whatever, and then which makes teachers like me at that particular school struggling, because we want to make things more efficient. We want to make things like more efficient, but also like quicker for everyone, quicker to reach,
and also for those kids to be able to access it. And kids at the moment access things very quickly via like digital paths.
Exactly.
Like, that's
and one point,
the fastest way for them.
And one point I made to the headmaster was, I remember very clearly, was that all of our parents are young parents, because they're like they're probably in their mid-30s, late 30s, or late 20s or whatever, like, but they're young parents because you're in the prep school, so the kids are younger, so the parents are younger as well. And most of these parents, they don't ask for handouts sheets, like worksheets. They don't go to their little Johnny and say, oh, what did sir give you? What's the worksheet? Show it.
Yeah.
They tell the teacher, oh, can you just email it to me, and then I'll
And have a digital copy.
have a digital copy of it. And then so I made that point, and then already the parents of the teachers, it was just like this old guard, new guard thing, and I was just like, towards the end I was like, oh god, I can't deal with this. And then I just ended up being like, I was like, oh, I don't care, I'll just do it your way or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think I've experienced that sort of thing that much. I've always just, the older teachers or the teachers have been teaching for a long time.
Yeah.
Some of them would have those feelings of not wanting to use technology, but I think they all like give into the fact that this is how kids are learning now, and things are changing.
Maybe I was just living in a very specific. Okay.
Yeah, it could be the particular school and
the culture of it.
yeah, that's right. Because I just look at the teachers at my current school who've been working there a long time, and you just want to know how they do things and see what they do differently.
Shout out to teachers.
Yeah.
Shout out
I
to
think
teachers.
they're the best resource for any teacher is to look at the classroom next door.
And I think more and more teachers have to be just essentially like literally superheroes. Like you have to do everything.
It's true.
Yeah, nurses, caretaker, social worker, counselor, and even like sometimes you have to like police the kids and stuff. At least with senior schools, you're just like, oh god. So
Yeah, that's true.
thank you for your, thank you for your work.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think is there anything that you want to talk about in particular into education? Any final thoughts?
Oh, I don't think so. I think we covered quite a bit.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else exciting to share.
Wasn't that daunting, was it?
No, not as scary as I
No,
thought.
yeah. But anyway, all right. Well, thank you very much, Julia.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and we're going to stop right there. And